Hi everybody. Good to see you.
Morning.
Morning to you. Thank you for coming. It's so much nicer to preach to faces rather than empty chairs. Today I want to talk about the whole subject of New Age medicine, and really I can only scratch the surface. I'm not able to go into any great, deep, involved level with it. I really just want to give us an overview, an understanding of what New Age is and what's out there currently in the marketplace that will unwittingly draw us into sin. I am passionate about dealing with sin as one who prays for people, who ministers, prayer ministers to people, who ministers healing and deliverance to people 4 days a week. I'm passionate about identifying what is sin, what is it that entraps us, what is it that hooks us and pulls us into an area that we have no idea about, that in fact then can bring bondage, affliction, can bring the enemy's influence into our lives. And I'm passionate about identifying these kind of things and speaking about them. And this actually is something that's been of interest to me for a good number of years. It was about 7 years ago, really, that I first started to think about this. When I became 50, and my dear friend Ada Davis, that Michael told you about, she was not only did she bring Michael to the Lord, but she also brought Michael to me. She was instrumental in manoeuvring things so that we got together. And she gave me a book. And it was a book about turning 50 and all the things that you can do when you turn 50 and how marvellous it is to turn 50, because, you know, you can now do Tai Chi. And you can now do reflexology. And you can meditate. And she had no idea, bless her little heart. She still has no idea, right? So don't you tell her. But I read this book and I thought, now this is a book given to me by a woman of God who wants to bless me. And how many people are getting this kind of information and thinking that it's perfectly okay to go down this route? And I got to thinking about it, and as I say, I started quite a long time thinking about this, and I've put together a list of different occasions in my life that I can think about when this sort of thing has been introduced to me. And I know that you too will be able to pinpoint times in your lives when you could have or have done some of these things. I was 18 when I first went to music college. I studied music in Birmingham, and I was taught yoga and the Alexander technique. 29 years ago, I was at work and I told a colleague that I had a headache, and he performed acupressure on me. 25 years ago, I was at a Christian conference, and a Christian offered me a reflexology foot massage, and I accepted it. I enjoyed it. 22 years ago, I developed a really strange backache. And the doctors couldn't treat me. No matter what painkillers I had, they couldn't treat me. I would wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning with a pain right across there. And it would keep me awake for 3 or 4 hours. And then I'd get 2 hours sleep and then have to get up for work. And it was dreadful. The doctor sent me to an osteopath who performed a little bit of manipulation, but then did the most strange process of spiritual activity on me, putting her hand underneath me and her hand over me from the back and doing something, you know, strange. I don't know what it was. And gradually moving up my back like this. And I prayed beforehand, and I know that nothing touched me, and I've since repented of it, and you know that. But she also was a highly endorsed acupuncturist and recommended that I took acupuncture. 22 years ago, I went to a Christian inner healing conference or meeting seminar, and I was taught visualization. Do we know what visualization is? It's a theory, a method which comes from psychotherapy, really, and it's where you visualize the situation that you were in, and you ask Jesus to come into that situation, and you visualize him healing you, you visualize him taking the bondage off you, you visualize him lifting you out of the mire. It's a process that a lot of people use to in secular circles to take people back into a painful situation and then to bring them out of it. But in Christian circles, it's definitely not something that we want to be doing. 16 years ago, a friend rang me asking me to consider the use of Bach's flower remedies. Anybody heard of those? Yeah. Yeah, they're very, they go back a long way, and they are a bit like homeopathy. You know, they're remedies, they're waters, they're liquids which come from flowers, but they are seen to be in and of themselves intrinsically healing. It's like a healing property is given to them, and there's a spiritual aspect to it. It's not like using lavender water to help you, to sprinkle it on your pillow. That's slightly different. These have an intrinsic value to them that has a spiritual basis. 12 years ago, I was shocked when my mother, who was then 88, showed me a leaflet which was aimed specifically at OAPs, which encouraged them to come along for coffee and cakes and biscuits, for chat and for Tai Chi. I was horrified. Do we know what Tai Chi is? Yes. It's in anybody seen Calendar Girls? It's the slow Chinese where they do all this sort of thing, and then they go into different different positions which they call different animals. It's the bear and the tiger and the snake, and it's Buddhist, it's Taoist in its origins, and don't do it. 10 years ago, I was praying for a 60-year-old Christian woman from our church. She had migraine after migraine after migraine, and she couldn't get rid of them. We discovered that she'd had an Indian head massage. And when she repented and confessed of that, when we ministered deliverance to her, the migraines went. The same year, I prayed for a Christian man in his mid-30s who had undergone a whole course of acupuncture treatment and who was no better. And a couple of years later, a respected Christian teacher, someone to whom we have looked over the years, has mentored us in many ways in the early days of Father's House. She asked me for any literature that I had on alternative medicines, as someone in her congregation was undergoing homeopathic and Chinese herb healing treatments, and she knew nothing about it. She had no understanding of what that meant. My daughter, aged 10, was in a PE class when the teacher lit a candle and asked all the children to meditate on nice things while staring at the flame. 10 years old. And my sister-in-law also announced that she didn't sleep very well. And she was also undergoing a course of acupuncture at work because it was now available free there on the National Health. I had a part-time job about 7 years ago, and a new employee declared that she would organise the office by training them to do yoga in their lunch breaks. We are surrounded by traps, surrounded by deceptions, surrounded by enticements from the enemy. And they don't look satanic, they don't look demonic, they don't look bad. And it seems that they work. So many people are involved in these things that they must work. But I'm telling you that when we get involved in that which New Age medicine offers us, we enter a trap, a snare you can't see. No snare can be seen, it's hidden, isn't it? It's hidden in the grasses so that the rabbit will go into it and be caught. And once it's caught, it cannot get out. And that's what happens with us because we don't realise the spiritual implications behind these activities. Yeah, let me give you a quote from a recent report on by the global health sector. It says the global alternative medicine sector is expected to reach close to $115 billion by 2015. $115 billion. I can't imagine what that looks like. According to global industry analysts, market growth is fueled by a trend towards herbal and nature-based products based on the presumption these products cause fewer side effects than modern medicines. Alternative medicine disciplines such as acupuncture, homeopathy, massage, Ayurveda, which is a system of Hindu alternative medicine, and traditional Chinese medicine are being practiced more widely in the Western world. And around 75% of the population in emerging nations receive alternative medical health care, compared with over half of the population of developed nations, particularly for lifestyle-related diseases. The alternative medicine market is also benefiting from changes in the insurance landscape, with more companies covering complementary and alternative medical care. One major obstacle to industry growth involves the comparatively slack condition of its regulations and less extensive research and developing methods than in modern medicine. The degree of risk associated with alternative therapies is sometimes perceived as higher relative to more mainstream healthcare in developed countries. We live in Mold in North Wales. It's a small town, about 10,000 inhabitants. And currently there are about 4 places, 4 clinics where you can go to get acupuncture, homeopathy, Chinese medicine, everything that you like really. Reiki healing, hypnotherapy. And I don't know about your hometown, but there is an absolute rash of health shops. Sunbeds, nails. Actually, I had my nails shellacked for the first time this summer. Never had my nails done before. It was wonderful, absolutely. Really pampered. But they also offer Reiki healing, stone therapy, aromatherapy, reflexology. And you can't really go to a spa and just have a massage and a relaxation. You've got to have a meditation. And you've got to have a stone therapy where they put these lovely round pebbles all heated on your back at specific points, which are chakra points, which comes from Chinese religion. So what is the attraction? Why is it so popular? Why does it attract so many people? And I think there's a few reasons for that. We're realizing that there are many dangers with modern medicine. And people are disabused, disenchanted, disappointed with what modern medicine has to offer. And We know that the big medicine companies are really out to make money. That's all they want to do. We hear stories of medicines that actually work being refused to be bought because they cost too much. And the medicine companies are the ones who are raking off the profit. So it's, you know, there's this whole disenchantment with what modern medicine represents. And maybe some of us have been to doctors and asked them for help, like I did with my back problem. And they can't help. They can't resolve the problem. And then you think, well, what else can I do? Soon after I met Michael, he told me this story, and I've never forgotten it. You know, he was a detective, and his job was to just pick up on something that was just not quite right, and then like a terrier sniff it out until he sorted it out.
That's Mike.
Yeah, that's Mike. You give him a bone, he never lets go of it. And what happened was this guy got, I think he was speeding, and he was asked to present his a driving license at the police station, and he presented his driving license, and he told them that he was a therapist, an alternative medicine therapist, but a guy at on the desk spotted that his occupation was down as a truck driver. He put himself out under the name of Brian Zentor Solomon Isherwood. I mean, you know, that sounds really good, doesn't it? Brian Zentor Solomon Isherwood. I mean, that'd sell it to me. But actually, he was a truck driver from Brighton who had decided that he could make more money deceiving people through rich women particularly, than driving a truck. So he set himself up in Cheshire, in our part of the world where we are, and put himself out as a radiologist, a New Age specialist in radiology, which actually is dowsing. Do you know what dowsing is? Yeah. The string with the toggle on the end of it.
Oh yeah, that's right.
It's a very old-fashioned. Water divining is the same sort of thing, you know, a string. And those with an opening, those with a receiver pad inside, a witchcraft receiver pad. And you know these things are sent down generation to generation. Oh, my mother read the tea leaves. Oh, my grandmother read the tea leaves. They're able to do it. They're able to do it, and they just, you know, they find the water through this dowsing method, or you find the answer that you're looking for through dowsing, radiology. And so what he would do, he would charge an extraordinary amount of money for women, particularly, to come and have an examination, which is part of the thing. I think he really enjoyed that, examining women in their underwear. And then he would take scrapings of the skin, he would take hairs, and he would send them away for examination and analysis, thank you. And then he would come back and he would declare that there was either not enough yeast, or not enough of this vitamin or that vitamin, and he would give them vitamins. Now, I hate to say this, but my sister-in-law has been to see him. And somebody in our church has been to see him. They're not here with us anymore. Not that that matters. I can say that, though, because... and they were horrified when they realised. But she said, I knew there was something wrong when he examined me. I just thought, this isn't right. So we've got this kind of person masquerading as an expert when really they're just a truck driver from Brighton. All of these alternative treatments and therapies, techniques, call them whatever you want to, are widely described or categorized as belonging to the New Age movement. And the New Age movement originated in 1971 in America, and it described itself as a self-conscious form of spirituality. Well, that immediately rings bells, doesn't it? Yes. Where we are not called to be self-conscious, we are called to be God-conscious. And they said that the earth was seen to be entering a new cycle of evolution marked by a new human consciousness. And that's because the old human consciousness didn't scratch where it itched. A new cycle of evolution. Do you remember the musical Hair? Yeah, this is the dawning of the age of Aquarius. And this apparently is what would birth a new civilization, the Aquarian civilization. It would widely embrace all other religions and would throw off the encumbrances of Christianity. Now, when I was a very happy pagan, I saw Christianity as being a set of rules and regulations that would restrict me, that would take away my freedom, and that would prevent me from having a good time. That's how I saw it. And it wasn't until I came into the kingdom and submitted to the lordship of Yeshua that I suddenly realized that actually my life outside of Yeshua had been the one with the bondage, and that actually I had been set free. But the world sees us as those who are under law, who are under religious bondage, who are preventing or wanting to prevent them from having a good time. And so the New Age movement has brought millions into the understanding of false religions, false worship, and false healing, because Satan is behind the New Age. And Satan is the god of false worship, false healing, and false religions. In a nutshell, the New Age movement is a title that refers to a worldview or a philosophy of life that many people now hold. I used to sell wine before I got saved, and a year or so afterwards. I was a wine consultant, and I used to make appointments on behalf of a German wine company. I would go to people's houses with my samples, and I would hold forth about the glories of German wine, and I would give them samples and tastings, and then I would sting them for as many cases as I could get them to buy. The number of houses I went into that were full of incense and Buddhas and candles and Hindu paraphernalia and witchcraft paraphernalia. I remembered this as I've been preparing this again. So many houses were obvious centers for meditation and for Hindu worship and stuff. We have no idea. We have no idea, because we don't meet these people, do we? We live in this circle of Christian people, and we don't get invited really to other people's houses. But when you go into other people's houses, you see what they really believe. And the New Age movement can be called a religion, because it's based upon religious dogma, religious understanding, and religious views. And whilst they would not agree with it, the main religious view is that of pantheism, which is basically anything goes. If it works, anything is acceptable. It's the belief that everything is a part of God, that God is all, and that all is God, and also believing that every man is part of God. And that's a lot of Buddhism in that, because, you know, in Buddhism you're not allowed to kill or destroy anything because God is in that. It's where the word tree huggers comes from, isn't it? Because, you know, God is in the tree. New Agers seek, and let's face it, we are all seeking a religious experience. We're all seeking God. We have a God, as I put it, a God-shaped hole. Only God can fill that void within us. Nothing else will fill the God-shaped void that's in us. No matter what we do, no matter where we go, no matter what we give ourselves to, it won't fill that unless it is God himself. And so New Agers are seeking that mystical experience, and they use techniques which are so demonic. They step over the line into active witchcraft. They use techniques which alter one's state of consciousness. Anybody know of Shirley MacLaine, the actress, who describes in graphic detail in her book her experiences having stared into a flame and then going into an out-of-body experience where her spirit detaches from her body and goes out. Her human spirit, this is. We are body, soul and spirit. And God said it's forbidden for man to have control over the human soul. Forbidden, we're not allowed to do it. But Satan therefore makes it possible for us to do it. We stare into a flame, and the next thing we know, our spirit man is under the control of our soul. We give it permission to exit our body, and there it is floating over there, and we're seeing it. I've had dreams like this, godly dreams where I have been out, as it were. And I know that sounds, oh my goodness, but I can tell you these are godly dreams, and I know that many other people have had that. But if it's not godly, let me tell you, it's frightening. I know of somebody who did this every night in order to avoid their pain. Every night they would go out over the city of Jerusalem and watch Jerusalem in the night. And it got harder and harder and harder to go back in the body. Until one night she couldn't, she died. Shirley MacLaine describes that. She describes that. And that is a New Age practice that thousands upon thousands upon thousands of people are doing because it's okay to do it. Everything's okay nowadays, isn't it? There are no boundaries. And these kind of processes always open up a door to a spirit guide. The minute we step into Satan's territory, he says, right, okay, I have authority now. So if we open a door to him, he's in there like grease lightning, yes. Thank you. So useful to have people who provide your words for you. Or as my daughter says, on it like a car bonnet. The spirit guide always deceives us, portraying itself as a good spirit. Always as an angel of light. Always as a reason for you to depend on it, become more and more following its lead and going where it goes. Because its job is to help you. And because of the reality of their experiences, because let me assure you that Satan makes sure that New Agers have a real experience, because then they become entrapped, because it's real. They believe they are one with the universe and are part of God, and that they have what they call human potential, an alleged divine power that they believe exists within all men. Now, all men have the potential for divine power, but the only key is Yeshua. He's the one who comes and inhabits us and empowers us. And any other power is from the enemy. Someone quoted that the New Age is concerned with a transformation of nature, both internally as healing and a higher form of development of a higher consciousness, and externally as a relationship with the wider environment. The interconnectedness between all things within a network symbolized as Gaia, G-A-I-A, is very important. You see all things coming together. You know, the spiritual with the natural, with the physical, with the mental, with the emotional. Everything coming together. And its spiritual aspect is expressed through harmony and light. Yin and yang, the black and the white with the holes in between. Yeah, we see it on fair trade. Every church buys fair trade. Expressed through harmony and light, often within a Christian interpretation. Healing is an important aspect of the New Age, and complementary or alternative therapies such as shiatsu, acupressure, reflexology, Reiki, and various visualization techniques are very much part of the whole, or better still, holistic picture. We've all heard that, haven't we? Holistic has become one of those generic words. Everything is holistic now, have you noticed? We can be talking about the carrots and potatoes and they're holistic because they come out of the ground. A New Age medicine known as the holistic health movement, New Age medicine known as the holistic health movement, is a major aspect. It's one of the major arms that Satan uses to deceive people through this whole movement. Holistic medicine. Holistic health accepts both the philosophy of New Age and the practices of New Age. And it applies them to the field of health, which is where I started out. This is the single most important reason over the past 30 to 50 years why there has been such a tremendous upsurge in interest in the occult. Do you see what I'm saying? That New Age interest and medicine has opened the door to the occult in our countries around the world. As Christians, in churches, as believers, we become involved in these practices, and what happens? We lose our closeness to God. We lose the voice of God, we lose the precious intimacy with God. We become lukewarm, and then we become cold and backslide. Nowadays, more and more traditional medical care practices are adopting these New Age methods to complement healthcare, because we haven't got all the answers, I guess. And it's difficult to avoid it. For instance, my mother, you know, that leaflet with Tai Chi, and then she went into a care home 2 years ago. And the next thing I know, they're asking her to do yoga exercises while she sits in a chair and has a cup of coffee. In the early 1990s in the USA, when this thing was really rolling like a snowball, a Christian author, Dr. John Weldon, wrote, "Although awareness of this movement has grown, discernment among Christians, although awareness of this movement has grown, discernment among Christians has remained marginal in the area of healthcare practices, which are at one level or another hostile to biblical teaching. More than half of the headquarters personnel of a highly respected worldwide evangelical organization have been treated with applied kinesiology, homeopathy, and other holistic therapies. Guests on national Christian TV shows have endorsed similar practices. A best-selling Christian author uses and promotes a Christian form of acupressure, iridology, etc. Acupressure is the pressure points in your body, using those to create healing. And iridology is the use of the iris and the eyes to predict and to work out what's wrong with you. I would say my people perish through lack of knowledge. And that word actually means that my people perish through lack of the Torah. Yes. Lack of the knowledge of the Torah. What is right and what is wrong. God has made it very clear what is right and what is wrong. But Satan is a deceiver. He masquerades as the angel of light, the father of light, but the father of lies. And he's clever. And we should never underestimate Satan. Never underestimate him. He was a right hand, created being of God, responsible for all the worship around his throne. He is magnificent in power. Let me tell you, he was magnificent in power. And that power has been distorted and perverted. But he still has that power. And he knows how to use it. Never underestimate Satan. We perish because we do not know what God says about things. And we do not know our enemy. And why should we perish through lack of knowledge when in this day and age everything is available to us at a click of a button on this computer? We can research everything. So why do we take everything at face value? Why do we want to go and get acupuncture when we can look at it and see that it's birthed in Chinese religion? Why should we do kinesiology when it doesn't make sense? Kinesiology is just one of those really weird things. It's all to do with your electrodes in your body, the electricity in your body and how it reacts and with certain things. It doesn't make sense, to me anyway. What we need information. One of the things I love about my husband's teaching is that he always researches the natural and applies the supernatural to the natural and the natural to the supernatural, so that you get the whole story. It's not just a theory. It's, this is what God says, but this is what has happened, and this is what the outworking of this theory has taught us. We need to be wise. We need to have the whole story. And so we need information on these things, but more than anything in these days, we need discernment of spirits. Didn't God say he would give us discernment of spirits? We need to sharpen up that spiritual antennae and to be asking the question, what is the spirit behind this? Not, does it work? That's the last question we ask. It's, what is the spirit behind this? God, what are you saying about this? And you know, that can apply to an object. I've had so many people say, I've got this thing in my house and I'm just not sure about it. And it has a familiar spirit attached to it. You know, it's, as Christians we are given discernment. We're given an understanding that something's right or it's wrong. And it kind of, it just you know, rankles. It's just something that says it's not quite something right. Have you ever gone into a hotel room and known something's not right? And then, you know, on the wall there's a picture, maybe an African picture, maybe an Indian picture, and you don't sleep all night because the room is contaminated. It has a familiar spirit attached to it. Music. Oh, I go into my local garden centre and there's this dreadful New Age music. Have you heard it? And it's all in all the spas. You go into no, I don't mean to S-P-A-R. I mean S-P-A. You know, it's this droning panpipe music. Well, panpipes is a thing in itself, isn't it? Who's the god of pan? Who is the god behind pan? Thanks, Candy. and it's this dreadful droning music. I can't bear it. It offends my spirit. It makes me feel sick, that sort of music. Discernment. Most people are either unwilling or unable to identify the roots of the teachings and the consequences of New Age practices. The presumption being that because a therapy sounds good or has been recommended by somebody in authority or by somebody whom they trust, then it's okay. Now, if we look at healing, because we're all interested in healing, can I just take a straw poll? How many of us here have something something wrong with us, which is, you know, a niggle or a problem, which you're seeing a doctor about, or which you struggle with on a daily basis. How many? Yes, a good number of us, isn't it? A good number. Healing falls roughly into 4 categories. Natural healing. The body heals itself. How many of us as mothers have said, oh, don't worry about that, it'll be better soon. Oh no, come on, you're going to school, you'll be all right. Or in our case, you're going to church, you'll be all right. We've got to go to church, you've got to go to church, even though you got flu. Mum, you sent me to church and I got flu. Yeah. The body heals itself. And arguably, this is the most frequent form of healing. And in actual fact, doctors themselves will admit that much of their practice simply strengthens or amplifies the body's own healing capacity. God has created us as amazing, amazing human beings. And our bodies do heal themselves. And then there's medical healing. The physician or the doctor assists the body with various medical treatments. I, for one, am extremely grateful for doctors and physicians. Last year, both my children had their appendix out. And then Sam had an abscess on his appendix. And these were all timed immaculately to coincide with our holiday periods.
Always.
Sam had an abscess on his appendix scar, and he was back in hospital again for the same operation. My mother collapsed. I'm so grateful. She was in hospital for 2 weeks, and she, you know, was made well by the ministrations of doctors and physicians. So I'm grateful for that. Medical healing. Then there's quack healing. And you know the term quack healing. Oh, that doctor's a quack. We heard it a lot in the 40s, 50s, you know, doctors claiming to be something that they weren't, claiming to be able to do something that they couldn't. And you know, the picture of the old preacher in the wagon train days, you know, in the old Western films, with a bottle of gunk with a cork stopper in it, claiming that this could do everything. Anything that was wrong with you, this would sort it. A physic. It was called a physic, wasn't it? And then we have divine or spiritual healing. And this is where the healing where God heals the body. If we believe in a personal, caring God, then divine or spiritual healing is logical. If we believe in a divine, caring God, then divine healing is to be expected.
Amen.
However, spiritual healing per se can be either legitimate or illegitimate. It's either divine or demonic. Now in the scriptures, you thought, am I ever going to quote any scriptures here? And I thought maybe I won't, but I am. In the scriptures we see that God does heal, supernaturally, according to his will and his wisdom. Psalm 103, verse 3. Praise the Lord, O my soul, and forget not all his benefits, who forgives all your sins and heals all your diseases. Exodus 15:26. Say it with me. I am the Lord who heals you. See, we know it, don't we? Yeshua repeatedly healed people out of compassion for their illness and disease and for their situation. Matthew 4:23. They brought to him all who were ill with various diseases, those suffering severe pain, the demon-possessed, those having seizures, and the paralyzed, and he healed them. Matthew 8:16. He drove out the spirits with a word and healed all the sick. We also see that God may give a divine gift of healing to some of his people. It's one of the spiritual gifts. I know people who, they just have to put their hand on somebody and they're healed. And for others that doesn't happen. But they can prophesy a word to somebody and they're healed. You know, we're given different gifts by the same Spirit, so that we are all a family. We are dependent on one another. You know what I'm saying there. 1 Corinthians 12 verse 9. To another gifts of healing by that one Spirit. Matthew 12:17. God has appointed those having gifts of healing. But there are also demonic miracles and healings. And in this day, we must be able to discern between divine and demonic healings. We're seeing healings all over the place, particularly those with a wham bam thank you ma'am, a smack in the stomach, a chop to the neck, a cut to the feet, and then they rise up and say they're healed. Does that fit with the God that we know?
No.
In my opinion, absolutely not. Yes, they're healed, but I believe it's a divine healing. And I can say that we have ministered to people who have had demonic healings and had deliverance as a result. Because when you have a demonic healing, when you believe and bow before somebody who ministers in demonic healing, you will receive a demon at their hands. Deuteronomy 13, 1-5. I'm not going to read it, but it says that you must know the difference. He warns us that genuine spiritual miracles can occur and yet still be false. These are described as counterfeit miracles. They look like the real thing, but they are false. 2 Thessalonians 2 verse 9, because they lead people to worship false gods. Satan sets this all up in order to take our eyes off Yeshua, off Yahweh, off the Ruach, and to go right or left of center into a different place, a false god. And I want to say that even if Christian practitioners of New Age therapies believe they are worshipping the true God, and I've met them. I practice Reiki, but I'm a Christian. I practice acupuncture, but I'm a Christian. Oh yes, I'm a reflexologist, but I'm a Christian. Let me say that the very philosophy and practice of those therapies prove that this cannot be, because God says you cannot have two gods. One God only. You cannot serve two gods. It has to be either the one or the other. There's no congruence. Now that's a psychotherapy word. Congruence. Things have to coordinate. They have to come together. There has to be integrity in the two. And they should not be yoked together. So I would not go to a Christian New Age therapist any more than I would go to a non-Christian New Age therapist. Jesus warned that many who claimed to do miracles in his name would depart from him into eternal judgment, and that false prophets and false Christs would perform great signs and wonders to try to lead even God's elect astray. Matthew 24. Many verses underscore much of what occurs in New Age medicine, and that is that spiritual claimants performing miracles and then counselling people to follow other gods. At its heart, New Age medicine is fundamentally idolatrous. Now I just want to make a few facts here. And I get into trouble for saying this, but I've never been grey. I've been black and white all my life. I believe that God never planned for the human race to be sick. Is there sickness in heaven?
No.
When you die and go to heaven, are you going to be sick? Are you going to carry a sickness?
No.
So where do they belong?
Below.
They're here on earth, aren't they?
Yeah.
Who is the God of earth?
Satan.
Who does sickness belong to?
Satan.
Why did he start it?
Sin.
Because he was ticked off.
Yeah.
Let me write that one down. Because he was ticked off. He started it to bring death. All sickness, in my opinion, you may not agree with me, and that's fine. In my opinion, Satan has brought sickness into the world because we have sinned. Because we have sinned, he is able to infiltrate and bring death. Sin leads, wages of sin is death. Satan has brought sickness into this world. And it's now endemic because it's generation upon generation upon generation. Is God the God of life or death?
Life.
Thank you. We agree on that. Why did Yeshua come to heal all sicknesses and all diseases? Why did he come to bring healing to body, soul, and spirit, mind, will, and emotions? Because he is the God of
Life.
God of the living, not the dead. He has come to bring us abundant life. I have come to give you life. So what has happened? Why are we sick? Why are we struggling? Because we no longer believe in the place that we need to believe, that God is interested in our sickness, in our illness, in our pain. The One New Man Bible puts this beautifully. And this is the picture God gave me during the worship this morning. This is Mark 5, verse 24. A huge crowd was following him and pressing upon him. And a woman who had a flow of blood for 12 years and suffered much under many physicians and had spent everything beyond her means and was not helped but rather became worse. Having heard about Yeshua, as she came from behind the crowd, she touched the fringe of his prayer shawl. For she was saying, if I could just touch his prayer shawl, I shall be saved. And immediately the flow of her blood dried, and she knew that her body was healed from the plague. The power of God has not changed. The desire of God to give us life has not changed. The ability of God through the Holy Spirit to heal all sicknesses, all diseases, all ailments, all afflictions has not changed. Has it?
No.
No. How can it? I'm the same God yesterday, today, and forever. How can it have changed? What has changed is our belief that he wants to. Because maybe we've been asking for a good number of years. Maybe our belief that he can. And so, where do we go? I just want to ask a question because I need to bring this to a close now. Has anybody been involved in, and you don't have to hold your hands up, acupressure, acupuncture, anthroposophical medicine, I don't know what that is, behavioral kinesiology, astrological medicine, biofeedback, bodywork methods, the somatic arts, colour healing, chromotherapy, chakra healing, cupping, dowsing, Edgar Case healing, hypnosis, martial arts, intuition, meditation, muscle testing, naturopathy, osteopathy, polarity therapy, psychic anatomies, psychic diagnosis, healing or surgery, psychometry, radionics, radiesthesia, psychonic medicine, Reiki healing, reflexology, self-help therapy, shamanistic medicine, touch for health, Tai Chi, visualization, yoga, and Kundalini yoga. There are others. That's not an exhaustive list. But if you have been involved in any of those, then we need to pray. Can you just put your hand up if you have done any of those in your past? Okay. Would you like to pray now? Okay. I'm going to say a prayer and I'm going to ask you to repeat it, and when I say my involvement with, I want you to confess the name of that which you have been involved with. And the rest of us who have not, who will not pray this for ourselves, please be praying for those people who are going to be praying now. So after me. Father, in the name of Yeshua, I confess, repent and renounce my involvement with, and say the name. I am sorry, Lord. I ask you to forgive me. I forgive all who have led me into this sin. I forgive myself for this sin. I now break off all powers of idolatry and false religion. I break every hex, curse, spell, incantation, seal, covenant, sacrifice, agreement, dedication, contract, alignment, baptism, act of will, submission of will, act of worship, birth, marriage, death, and resurrection. I take the sword of the Spirit and cut through every soul tie with myself and every practitioner of New Age medicine and every spiritual authority admitted through it. I take authority over every spirit of New Age. I name the particular issue now. And do so. Whatever the issue is. I bind you. I rebuke you. And I command you to leave me in Yeshua's name. Quietly on the breath. Now let's just all pray and ask God to come and release people from that which they've been in bondage to. In Yeshua's name. And in closing, I just want to say that God still desires for us to walk in healing and wholeness. He still has miracles of healing, miracles to perform amongst us. And if we have an issue that needs healing, then we're here. And this week, will you please come and seek healing for your condition, no matter what. Come to the God who has all the answers. come to the God who remains the same yesterday, today and forever, and who has the power to transform sin into great glory. Hell! Lord, I pray for each one here. I thank you, Lord, that you give us understanding and revelation. And Lord, I thank you for wisdom and discernment, and I pray an increase in wisdom and discernment within each brother and sister here, Lord, that we would not be led astray, we would not be entrapped, Lord, and that we would have, Father, victory over the enemy in our lives. Lord, would you take us on, take us further, and Lord, I pray healing in the name of Yeshua, by the power of the Ruach HaKodesh, the Holy Spirit of God, and that this week people will go back completely changed. In Yeshua's name. Amen. Amen.
It's lunch now. If we break for lunch, and then the seminars begin at 2:30. So we'll see you at 2:30. For the leaders meeting and any speakers, we've got a meeting upstairs in the conference room at 2 o'clock. So